Grading and lesson planning probably take up the most of our time as teachers. So in today's video, I am going to be sharing with you how I do my lesson planning and hopefully give you some tips and tricks along the way to make it go quicker so that you don't spend all of your time making lesson plans. If you're new here, I'm Rachel Vincent and I share tips on how to run effective and efficient classrooms so that you can get more done and still have time to teach. So I have tried to make this video for the past 2 weeks, but it's the end of October, therefore everything apparently needs to be scheduled to happen the last 2 weeks of October. We've had parent-teacher conferences, report cards, first quarter benchmarking, our booster-thon, the fun run, and we're in the middle of Red Ribbon Week, hence why I'm wearing a team shirt today. So before I get in and show you exactly what I'm planning coming up and how I plan it, I just want to kind of give you a little background on what I'm required as a teacher when it comes to lesson planning. I am required to have formal lesson plans available for our administration to check whenever. I have always worked at a school in my 19 years of teaching that has required lesson plans. I am a 4th grade teacher in South Carolina. I've taught 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and I also spent a year teaching computer for special area related arts in a K-5 setting. That year was probably the only year that I wasn't required to have actual formal lesson plans, but obviously I still made lesson plans. I'm also fortunate enough to, anytime I've ever worked on a team, which is every year except 3, that we split up our lesson plans. And so I did not have to plan everything. I did teach at a school where I was the only teacher on the 3rd grade team, so I did plan everything for those 3 years. Fortunately, those lesson plans were not as detailed as all my other years have been, where I've had to have all of the standards, the objective, the mini lesson, the independent practice, the assessment piece, the sharing, all of that information. So how my grade level has done lesson plans has been different. I've done it where years where you would plan all of the lessons for the whole week and then it would circle through the rest of the team. So you'd have 1 week of lesson plans that you were required to do, and then you'd have several weeks off before it came back around to you. The current grade level I am at, what we do is we each plan a different subject. Now this has looked different over the years too, depending on the number of teammates I have had. For the past few years, I have planned all of ELA, reading, writing, word study, all of those when we only had 4 team members. We got a new 5th team member last year, and I continued to plan those so that our new teammate could adjust to our school and get a year under her belt. And this year she has taken on reading, and so currently I am only planning writing and word study. One of the things we have done over the past 2 years also is we have taken our social studies standards and really integrated them into our ELA standards. They lend themselves very well together, and so that has allowed us to only have to have one actual instructional lesson of social studies a week, and the rest of our week is spent on science. And then the rest of our social studies standards are integrated into our ELA block through the reading and writing standards. So for me, that always starts with our long range plans. Well, I am no longer at school. I got interrupted yesterday, and then the school day happened, and I did not get a chance to pick the camera back up. Was hoping for this to be more of like a sit down talk to you type of video, and now I feel it's more like a vlog. But I do want to show you my steps for planning. I think I was starting with the long range plans. So let me show you what our long range plans look like. Essentially, it is just has each day of the school year and broken down by weeks, and then all of the subjects that we teach, and then what we are doing for the most days, pretty much each day. It has our major grades in bold, and then just if it's a minor grade, it's just listed. And what this essentially does is just kind of keep us on track. It lets everyone on our grade level know what's coming up. It also is very helpful for when it's time for me to plan. So this is the first quarter. And as you can see, we've had to make adjustments, and that's just part of teaching, where you make adjustments for what each year brings. But it's also just nice to, because we have all of our plans are on Google Docs, it's nice to be able to, instead of having to go back into last year's plan to look what we did, We just have it written here. So we get the order of how we teach our topics from our district. They have a pacing guide for us, and although they have the order of things, they don't have it broken down into daily lessons. And then they have a whole bunch of other resources and lots of documents for us to click through. So it essentially saves us time to have it written out this way, so we can quickly at a glance see what we're working on. And that way, when it is time to actually start to write this year's lesson plans, we can go in and look at just last year's. And this is part 2, is pulling up last year's plans and copying and pasting what we can. The nice thing about doing digital plans instead of writing it down on paper is that we do have the ability to copy standard numbers, objectives, assessments, questions that we're going to be asking. A lot of that kind of stuff stays the same. If a lesson went well last year, I keep it the same. I might switch out a few activities here and there, but overall, a lot of it stays the same. Now, there are times where I want to update it. I think we can do better at it, and so that is what will change. That is actually what I'm working on this week. I knew that our opinion writing, we changed it a little last year. I knew it could be better, so I have kind of upped the teaching slides we're using and things like that. And so that's the freedom of being able to share the workload with your grade level, is when you're only having to plan 1 or 2 subjects, you are able to spend more time kind of tweaking what you taught to make it even better. So now I'm going to take you over to the computer and show you the next step of pulling up old lesson plans and figuring out what to do next. So this is my Google Drive. I have a lesson plans folder, and in here I have my lesson plans for this year, and then these are the lesson plans I have from last year that I will go back and pull up from. You can see here I also have our long range plans to be able to go ahead and change and update, so we have them pretty much ready to go for next year. So I'm going to go in and pull up the lesson plans from last year to copy and paste into this year's. All right, here I have last year's plans pulled up, and I went ahead and just made a copy of the whole document so that I can start to change things around. This year we have Monday off and Tuesday off for election day, so it is only a 3-day week. So all of this is going to be shifted to the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to begin with. I need to kind of move all of those, some copying and pasting there. Let's see, these are shifting, so for Thursday and Friday will shift to the following week. There's always that shifting around. Before I do all that shifting around, one of the things I do is I make sure that the slides I'm going to use are how I want them. And like I said, this opinion writing unit we did last year for the first time. It is a opinion piece on whether or not they would be a patriot or loyalist in the American Revolution. We've tied that into our social studies standards. We use it for a major writing grade and a major social studies grade, since it's the content and the writing that we're grading. And so what that does is also save us from having extra work to grade. We try to combine grades where we can. So while I quickly made slides last year, they were based on our opinion writing topic from the year before, which was, I believe, would you use cell phones, and should cell phones be in school, or something along those lines. I wanted to really kind of beef up our teaching slides, and so I actually spent this past week working on the opinion writing slides to make them a little bit stronger and a little bit better. So these are our writing slides that we'll be using to teach our writing lessons for each day. I do a mixture of creating my own things, using things from TPT, and so I can't put this on TPT for you to use as well without kind of fixing some things. So we have our big question, and then we'll introduce them using this video from YouTube. This person has great videos on opinion writing. And then we'll talk about what is opinion writing. Then we go into researching our opinion. And so this is where I use a TPT resource that I have, that they will read about patriots and loyalists. We will highlight the characteristics of each, and then we will graph the different characteristics, and then that is it for that lesson. This lesson will take a while because we're reading, we're researching, we'll be highlighting and sort of comparing and contrasting patriots versus loyalists. So then the next day, this is when they will choose their opinion, and then they will create we have some more Patriot versus Loyalist videos that I found on YouTube that we'll watch, and then they will make their opinion and do their brainstorm. And I created a brainstorm document for them to fill out. Since this is created, I immediately print it so that I can put it in my copies drawer to be copied later, and I don't have to pull this up at a separate time. All of these like little bitty steps are always trying to save me time in the long run from lesson planning. So I print this immediately. And then what's nice is next year when we go to do this again, I'll already have this, I'll pull it up, I'll print it, we'll be good to go. And part of the reason why my slides are just white and so plain, because I'm not trying to make them Pinterest worthy. I am trying to get the information to my students without using a whole bunch of extra time to make them all super pretty. But then the third lesson, we go into writing our introduction. There's another video about writing an introduction. This is from another TPT resource, the Not So Wimpy Teacher. I just snipped it from her product that I had purchased and put that in there. And then we talk about our hook. And then this is an example of what their graphic organizer will look like. So this is for us to kind of work through some examples. And then they have one that will look exactly the same. It'll be on one paper for them to use. I've also printed this out ready to go for the copies for next week. And then we go into day 4 and 5, which they are doing this is actually the following week. I went ahead and planned out this whole unit. Also, again, I feel like that saves time to do it all at once because my brain is already thinking about this instead of having to switch to a different task. And so I worked through the body paragraph of them explaining their reasoning, and then they go into the conclusion. Again, pulled different resources for them to use. And then, of course, we have revising and editing. I honestly just found that on Google Images. It's somebody else's. And then they will type and turn it in. And that will be our lessons for our teaching slides for our opinion writing unit. Now this did take some time to create, but not a whole lot of time because I'm not making it super fancy. I am just pulling resources that I've already had. A lot of it we used last year. I'm just kind of beefed it up. I kind of made our graphic organizer a little bit better and our slides a little bit more informational as far as what we're teaching them, just to kind of make the process a little bit more streamlined. So typically what I do is I have a list each week of what I need to work on. And on Monday, my day is let me just show you. It's easier. Okay, so this are my weekly to-dos that I like to get done each day during my planning time. So we have a grade level meeting after school. So the only thing on my Monday to-do list is parent email. I send a parent email every Monday. That does not take my full 45 minutes. So often what I do is make sure that email is sent, and then I start working on my lesson plans for that week. And so that way I have almost 2 full 45-minute blocks in order to plan that. I typically can get it done, and then I might have a couple extra things to get done here, which is weekly lesson plans, meaning I'm making sure that I'm copying and pasting it into our shared drive where the other teachers on my grade level can see it. And again, that doesn't take long. It really just depends, because some weeks I am literally just copying everything we did last year because it worked wonderfully. And some weeks, like the week I'm showing you guys, it's taking longer because I am adding more or doing something new. I am actually working on plans for 2 weeks out, because this past week we had benchmark testing where students are working on an online assessment and then we can't help them. And so I was working on these opinion writing slides and working on the graphic organizer and getting all of those things ready because I know that's coming up. So then on Thursday, I have to update our class website, the weekly slides I use for morning arrival, and then our agenda, which honestly takes me probably about 5 to 10 minutes at this point in the year. So I used the rest of this time to start working on our morphology lessons that we are going into in word study starting the week of November 7th. I do have a copy of this and some other weekly editable slides that I use to keep myself on track as I'm lesson planning. I will have that link available down below in the description. So the next thing I am working on for this same week is we are going into morphology, prefixes, suffixes, and root and base words. We kind of have wrapped up our syllables instruction, and we essentially didn't have much word study this past week because of benchmark testing. And then next week we're kind of giving space for everyone to kind of catch up because of that testing. We're a little bit behind in some things. So I'm not starting morphology until the week after. Now, morphology is fairly new to me. I've taught prefixes and suffixes before, but I am using the science of reading research to teach it. I've done my own reading and my own research and taking some webinars and trainings to kind of help me in this area. So it is all kind of new to me, and I'm making it up as I go. So one of the very first things that I did, since this is brand new to me, is I kind of mapped out what I want my lessons each day to be. So that way I know what to create my slides on. So I know that this first day, I wanted it to be an introduction to what morphology was, and then talk about these words that students have probably heard before, but maybe not know exactly what they mean. And then talk about how they already use suffixes regularly. And then we're going into the spelling rules so that they know how to add suffixes to their words with the CVC doubling rule. We're going to do the silent E and then changing Y to I. And then on the 5th day, we're going to go and talk about ones that they use regularly, which is S, ED, and ING. And then I went ahead and I've kind of mapped this out until Thanksgiving break, just so I kind of know where I'm going with things, because once I start to create the slides, they kind of become a just copy and paste, and you just change a few things. So we're going to talk about different prefixes and suffixes a day, and we'll probably on this last day just do like a big review of everything and even talk about words that have all of them. And then over here was just something they've been exposed to these in our language pages that they do each week. And so I just wanted to kind of keep track of what they've already been exposed to so that we can make sure we're covering that as well. So here I've only got 2 days. I need one more day to get through that week of the 3-day week that we have, essentially doing the same thing that I have been doing with my word study slides and the opinion writing. Is it's very plain, very simple, but just something to get us to be able to teach the information. So you can see here, I just walk through all of our different things that we're talking about, and then talking about the 3 great spelling rules and how when we double CVC words, and then they'll do some practice. Our morphology lessons are supposed to be 5 to 10 minutes long, not very long, because we want the majority of our time to be focused on our opinion writing, and we're doing the reading here. So this week, reading and writing will be the same, all about reading about patriots versus loyalists and beginning to form our opinions and beginning to write and brainstorm our opinions on it. And then the following week we'll continue with our writing, but then we'll bring back in more reading skill lessons. So the last thing I wanted to show you here was just how we share the document that we're putting our lesson plans in as a 4th grade team. So we have our 4th grade folder, and each of us have our own folder where we put our personalized lesson plans. But then in the rough draft plans is where we collaborate on with our lesson plan. So this is our current week coming up. As the word study planner and the writing planner, I will put my lessons in here, and then the other teachers who are planning the other subjects put other things in, and then this is how we kind of collaborate on everything as far as our lesson plans go. I will say that when I first came to this school and we started planning this way, I would take this information and I would copy it and paste it and put it in a lesson plan template that I preferred. And then I've even done it to where I would copy it onto paper, pencil. And then I just got to the point where I realized that was just extra work I was doing. Is this the format that I love and that I like visually to use and things like that? No. But am I wasting time copying and pasting plans into a different document? Yes, and if that makes you happy, by all means do what makes you happy. But I just realized I would rather use my time in a different way. And so I now just use this same document. I make a copy of it. I add my details into it in my groups and things like that to make it fit my needs. But essentially, I just keep all the same information. I actually will pin it to my tabs so that it's there all week long, and then I can access the links and things like that as we are using mostly digital resources in our classrooms. If you have any questions about my process of lesson planning, let me know in the comments below. I have the link for those weekly editable templates, to-do list, down in the link below. And if you're wanting to see sort of that week-long process of how I use my planning time every day to get all the things done so I don't take work home on the weekends, so check out the video that's on your screen now where I take you through a week of planning and how I get it all done at school.